Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the Guitar Underground. I'm your humble host, Neil Santos. And today we're going to look at fretboard mastery as a concept. What does that even mean? How do you attain it? What level of fretboard mastery do you need to be comfortable with to do what you want to do on the guitar? Maybe you don't need as much as you think, or as much as everybody tells you you think. Maybe as much as people tell you that you need, all right? Or maybe your goals are very high and you absolutely need complete mastery of your fretboard in order to do the things that you want to do. So to start out, we're going to look at what does it even mean to have fretboard mastery, and then we're going to look at different ways that you can achieve fretboard mastery on your own. I'm going to try not to say fretboard master anymore. I feel like I'm up to at least 20 times already, and it's only been maybe a minute. So, all right. So, let's look at what does it mean to have FM. Should I say FM? No, that sounds weird. Let's just say fretboard mastery. What does it mean? So, the first thing I guess that people would think of when they think of fretboard mastery is that you know every note on the fretboard without hesitation, right? If someone said, play me an A note, you can say, okay, I can play it here, I can play it here, I can play it here, or here, I can play it here, right? There's so many places on the guitar to play an A note, which kind of makes it difficult, right? On piano, you only have, they say play middle C. There's only one middle C. You're not going to be able to play a whole bunch of different variations of it. And that's one of the things that makes guitar tricky, but it's also one of the benefits of it. You can play things in various parts of the neck once you kind of understand where they all are. So, being able to understand at first, at least, where your root notes are on your top strings, that'll help a lot. You'll be able to place chords, place scales. You'll be able to, see what other people are playing and identify what chords and scales they're playing, which is a huge thing, especially when you're out jamming with people. Another part of it is when you start getting into the other strings, right? And you have to know that this is a G, so you can play a G chord here, right? Or you can play a G minor chord. You want to be able to place chords on the neck and scales on the neck, not only from looking at the top two strings, but now you're looking at the rest of them, right? There's 6 strings, and you should be able to identify where the notes are relatively quickly. Maybe not instantly, but with little to no hesitation, you should be able to say, okay, this is a C, this is a D flat, right? That's one way to look at fretboard mastery, all right? A second way to look at fretboard mastery is being able to play the same scale in multiple positions on the guitar, which is great. This is a benefit of the guitar, where if you have a scale, like a pattern, like a minor pentatonic, right? And you want to move that on piano, you would have to move it up a note on the keyboard and start like changing the sharps and the flats, and you go into the black keys. But on guitar, you just take that same shape, just move it up a fret. So that is cool. And that is part of knowing the notes on the top strings, knowing where to place that. But then you get into another aspect of mastering the fretboard. And it is being able to play that in different spots. Playing it down here at the 5th fret feels different than playing it up here at the 17th fret. So mastering the actual tactile part of playing, right? The actual, I don't know if haptic would be the right word, but the physical difference of playing in different spots of the neck. That has to be considered too. So that can also be considered part of fretboard mastery. There, I said it again. All right. So the third way that you can master the fretboard, and these kind of get more and more intense, like at the first couple, you can go in stages, like deeper and deeper into understanding the fretboard. The top ones were like knowing where the notes are. That's a good place to start. Then it's being able to move your scales around. Now we're going to talk about linking scales and arpeggios and chord shapes fluently, right? So this is assuming that you know some scales, you know some arpeggios, right? These are all A major, and then you know some chords. I didn't tune my guitar. I don't know if it's in tune. Hopefully it is. You can tell me in the comments. But yeah, so linking all those together fluidly. Like, so if the chord at the moment is A major, you can see that chord shape, and then you can see the surrounding arpeggio. And then you can also see the larger, more complicated scale, right? A major scale. And be able to mix and match between those. So you're not just playing chords. Now you're throwing in some arpeggios, some scales. And that's another level of fretboard mastery. All right. Number 4, understanding intervals and how they relate across the strings. Now we're not thinking like note names or, like C sharp, B flat notation sort of names. We're thinking of the distance between one note and another. All right. So like we talked about playing A here at the 5th fret and playing A here at the 17th fret, but in between there are 12 notes, or 11 really. So you have to think, all right, from this A to this B flat, that's a minor second, and then A to B, that's a major second, and understanding it like that, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth, flat sixth, major sixth, flat 7, major 7, and then back to the octave, right? So they're seeing them. Ooh, excuse me, I just punched my mic. I'm going to have to take it easy on this guy. He's not going to work for me anymore. So there's looking at it like that on one string, but then there's going across strings, right? So you could say, all right, here's a major third, minor third, here's your major 7th, right? Here's your flat 7, 6, here's your 5th, your power chord, here's a 4th. So that's another way to look at it, right? You want to be able to, from any note on the neck here, just take this note, right? So I know if that's a root, then this is your major third. This is your minor third. Here's your 5th. So these are important intervals to understand if you want to master the neck. So master the neck is so many different ways that lead to it. Note names, interval names, the feel of it moving around on the neck. So let's look at another one. Let me get my notes here. Playing melodic lines without relying on memorized patterns. So we're getting deeper and deeper into understanding the neck. So that is just kind of the idea of like, all right, so everybody knows this lick. Something like that, right? Like a Chuck Berry thing. Now, I'd call that a memorized pattern. that's something that all of us kind of know, and you might just throw it out there. But mastering the neck would mean that you can create your own stuff. You know what I mean? Like someone created that at one point. I don't know if it was Chuck or you heard it from someone else. But, they took a scale and they made their own thing with it. So they're not, wouldn't just rely on that one lick. You want to be able to take a scale and do your own thing with it, kind of throw some stuff out there and see what happens. And that's going to trigger like musical memories in you that will allow you to resolve it, turn it into something that means something to you, because that sounds like that part of this song. And then you mix it with the part of another song. But to be able to do that, you need to really be able to understand your scale shapes. And I mean, even just doing that without knowing what note you're playing, just kind of manipulating a scale because you know the fingering so well, and you're not just playing up. You're not just playing those patterns up and down or things that you know. You're kind of now taking all those things and molding them into something that means something to you and sharing it with people, right? And that's what music is at the very kind of base level. So yeah, that's another idea. Not just relying on licks that you've memorized. The next one, have the ability to improvise in any key effortlessly. So this can be tough as guitarists. We're very kind of comfortable playing G, C, D, A, E, all these keys. E's good because you have the open string. A. G, you have G major because you have all those open strings. But now you start getting into some flat keys and you're playing D flat major in that key. Now you got an E flat, an F. You should be able to jam in that key, hopefully as comfortable as you would jam on A or E or whatever, which is, very close, just a fret down. But you start getting away from those fret markers on the neck and the dots, and it kind of gets confusing. All your scales that you've practiced, typically are right on the dots for the most part, if you're anything like me. And then you get off the dots and it's like, you really have to start thinking a little bit harder. And nothing can ruin a musical feeling and vibe as much as thinking can. If you can do it without thinking, without playing from your head, and you're just playing from your heart, that's where you want to be. So that's part of fretboard mastery, being able to play on any area of the neck, dots or not. So that is number 6. Number 7 is reading chord charts and tabs while translating them into sound, all right? Or into music specifically. If someone throws a chord sheet in front of you and say they said that, they're like, okay, it's, it's G to B7 to C, all right? And you can play that, but, rather than just playing, that's pretty cool. If you can do that, that's good, And then the next level is maybe you start, like interpreting those, like we did before with mixing chords and arpeggios and scales together. then you're kind of able to, master the song. You're able to play the same chords at a higher level because you understand where you are on the neck. You understand, here's a G, here's a B7, and here's a C. You can now start playing with your heart instead of your head because you know where all those notes are, you know where all the chords are and how the scales surround those chords. So when the chords change, you change along with them, but that's all in your head. I heard Eric Gales talking about today on the Rick Beato show. He compared it to like a Google search where like you have to put that info in there, but then when you need it, say, all right, I got to play a G right now. You know all these different places to play a G. You know all these scale shapes that go along with G, and then it goes to a C, and then you search for C, and you go, oh, I know all these things in C, and then back to G. So that's the idea. Like these are getting more and more intense each one, but that's how you turn chord charts and tabs into music. All right. We're getting near the end of the list of what defines fretboard mastery. We're on number 8, recognizing chord tones inside scales for soloing. So this kind of relates again to that chords and scales and arpeggios, but more often than not the arpeggios, right? So say you have your Ionian, A Ionian on the 5th fret, the 3-note per string patterns. Now there is a underlying or overlaying, I'm not lying, arpeggio that goes right there, and it would be this, right? So that's your A. And then maybe it goes to B minor. So you can see there's a arpeggio here. Oh, wait, where is it? So knowing where those notes are is going to allow you to focus on those notes when the chord comes up. I don't really think that way, but I know it, and I think more in pentatonics than arpeggios, which is basically the same thing. Pentatonics are just like arpeggios with some added color notes. The color notes that will sound good with that chord tonality, major or minor, at the moment. So that's how I do it, but even still, if I was playing A and I play A pentatonic, I know that the root notes, the chord tones are A, the 3rd, 5th, root, 3rd, 5th, root, and then, but when the B comes up, I'm not thinking, all right, I have to play the B notes from the Ionian mode. I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking B minor. So I could go to the B minor pentatonic. And I know the chord tones are here. Or I could do it here. That's it. So when you're playing, if you need to, you can focus on those. That's a little too cerebral for me, so I don't really think about it. Like I said, I try to play from my heart, and just matching up the pentatonic with the chord is about all I want to think about. And then I just want to let my spirit or flow or whatever it is take over and just navigate it and enjoy the sound. So, but that's recognizing them, the chord tones in the scale that's the step. Like you can recognize it if you need to. Number 9, navigating tricky transitions and positions smoothly. All right? Yeah, like the guitar neck is a maze and chord changes are so complex and weird. Um, this is more of a feel thing, I think, too, as well as seeing it. Let's say you have an F chord here and you want to go to B flat major. You can do this. So it's about changing voicings, maybe, but being able to do that like in the moment, or here's you want to go to a C, but they're all kind of just using all four fingers and just jumping quickly. And if that was a fast change, you want to be able to move your fingers quick enough and navigate those transitions, So that's more of a feel thing, kind of like playing up the neck and down the neck. It's more of being able to feel your fingers are comfortable on the neck. They can jump to those strings without even looking. You just know the feel of it. And you know how it's going to feel. Even if you were in a dark room or a stage with a bunch of flashing lights and you can't really look at your neck because it looks crazy. Navigating the fretboard. All right, the last one to define fretboard mastery is feeling confident that the fretboard is an extension of your musical intuition and not just a bunch of notes, right? And that's playing from your heart instead of your head, right? And so that's the final level, when you beat the final boss on the guitar neck, is when you can just play and not even think about all this stuff. You're not even thinking about the chords. You just kind of know the song enough that now you're just flowing around, kind of like Eric Gale does. And like, bring him up again because I heard that interview today. But honestly, he is just a phenomenal player, mixing all sorts of styles. He builds up his solos, mixes dynamics. I would point him out as a true master of improvisation that people can grab onto. Most people can grab onto because it's blues-based, but he incorporates so much more than that into his blues playing. There's a lot of fantastic improvisers out there that I could recommend, but it might turn people off because, it might be too esoteric or whatever, like Julian Lage, if you're into jazz, or any of those any jazz guy is going to be a fantastic improviser, playing from their heart. Or maybe if you're into metal, you got Guthrie Govan. He's just phenomenal. If you like fusion, Matteo Mancuso. The list is endless. It depends on what's your flavor of improvising, but these are players that are at the level of playing from their heart, able to play whatever their mind comes up with in the moment, or whatever their whim is, their intuition is to play. They can do it. They can access it and deliver. So yeah, that is the final level of understanding your fretboard and mastering it. So cool. Now it's the time of the podcast for the low pressure Pentatonic Way commercial. If you actually apply these, if you want to actually apply these ideas and feel confident on the fretboard, my Pentatonic Way membership's designed exactly for that. We focus on simple, practical approaches that help you connect scales, licks, and melodies without overthinking, just like I've been saying. You can join at your own pace, get monthly jams and exercises, and start making real progress today, all without pressure. So, if you're interested, if that sounds good, check it out at thepentatonicway.com. I appreciate it. All right. So we've defined what fretboard mastery is. Now let's take a look at how you can go and attain it. So here's 10 tips to help you get to that final boss, right? Level 10. So number 1, start with one scale like minor pentatonic and know it in all positions. This is huge. I mean, this is one. Excuse me. Let me just take a sip here. Oh, I forgot to mention coffee is an important part of fretboard mastery to help your brain stay up, fire those synapses. Okay, so start with one scale like the minor pentatonic and know it in all positions. This is huge. Like if you learn all 5 shapes of the pentatonic, that's going to serve you in 80% of the music that you play. Because not only is it minor pentatonic, but it's also major. So knowing shape 1 that we all kind of know, that's great. Shape 2, you just go up to that next note. Shape 3. Shape 4. You guessed it, shape 5. And then shape 1 again, right? It's only 5 shapes. And learning those is going to help you navigate the neck. You're going to know what to play all along the neck. It's going to help you with those tricky transitions, right? If you don't just play one scale, you play one scale for each chord. Excuse me. You re-aim the pentatonic for each chord. Like you put that one shape somewhere else every time a chord changes. And once you can do that, now you're making those transitions easily because it's only 5 shapes. You just go out, I move to this shape, and then I go to that shape. It's not too much that you can't remember in the moment and be able to like find those spots on the neck and play it. So that is level 1. Practice connecting scale shapes horizontally and vertically across the neck. So that's the level 2. Like if you know the 5 shapes, now you can start moving between them. You're moving across the neck, you're moving down towards the body and back. You're not now divided by these 5 boxes, these 5 shapes. You're flowing from one to the other as you want, like following your bliss. And that's where you want to be. Complete freedom across the neck in one scale. Now that's level 2. Level 3 is learn one chord shape per week in multiple positions, right? So say, for example, if you want to do this shape, we'll do A major again because it shows up good on camera. So A major bar chord. Now you can play these notes here too, right? Or say you want to do A here. So you would do, like the fingers is different, but they're the same notes. You got your root, your 5th, your root, and your major 3rd. You could play that here again, up at the 12th fret. So I think that's the idea, is being able to play all around the neck. Or maybe not the chord shape, which could be like the scale shape thing, where you play the A major bar chord, but you're playing it up here at D, and you're good at playing it up here at G. I don't know when you do that, up at the 15th fret, but you could play it down here in the F chord. So that's another idea, playing not just the same voicing, like the same series of notes in different spots, but playing that same exact shape all around the neck. Or to take that concept a little bit further, to play A major in different voicings, right? You have this voicing, you have this voicing, you have this voicing. Like we were saying, you have this voicing. You have, let me see, or this voicing. That's with the little 9th in there. Being able to just take an A, that's what's on the page, A major, and deciding how do I want to play it. Like, which voicings do I like, or which voicing matches this part of the song. Maybe it's the first verse, we want to keep it low and mellow. The second verse, you want to play something maybe a little brighter, move it up the neck. That's musical choices. So now you have those options. So that's something to think about. That would be tip 3. Tip 4 is play simple melodies and solos slowly, focusing on fretboard visualization. All right. So that means, slowing it down when you're practicing, rather than just like shredding out. Instead be intentional, right? Like if you're playing an A and you wanted to say your goal is to be able to target those chord tones, maybe you play. You're kind of saying, all right, I'm gonna like try to land on these chord tones, and I'm gonna maybe string them together in a way that sounds good to me. And then maybe if you go to like a B minor, like we were saying, now you're, and then back to A. Back to B. So slow it down. Don't be afraid to take it down to where your brain can keep up. That's the problem I have. Things are going too fast. You don't have time to react or think. The chord's already changed, right? So being able to slow it down without tempo, you're just practicing just for your own pleasure and exercise, then don't worry about slowing down. Play as slow as you want to make sure the notes you're playing are the notes you mean to play, right? I had a guitar teacher when I first went to Berkeley named Charlie Chapman. I thought that was so cool. But when I went in there, I was like firing on all cylinders. I'm just playing a bunch of stuff. And he's like, whoa, slow down. He's like, don't play a note unless you know what it's going to be. Like, let's try that. I was just kind of shooting from the hip, just going for it. He's like, no, you're trying to get me to be more intentional. So ever since then, I've kept that in the back of my mind, and it's okay to slow down. It's actually beneficial, and when you do speed up later, you'll still have that knowledge that you gained when you slow down. So that's another thing to think about. Transpose familiar licks to different keys. All right, this is a good one. So say you had this lick. Maybe not a different key, but you could play it. Or you're never going to know where you're going to be on the neck at any particular time, right? You're soloing maybe, and you end up here, but you want that lick. Your head hears or whatever. You're like, where is that? Oh, it's here. So that's a good thing to do. Don't just get locked into one place on the neck where you can play a thing. Try to move it around. All these things are going to help you to master the fretboard, right? And I'm giving you a lot of tips here, but don't do them all at once. Do 1 or 2 a week, or just, do one for a whole season until it kind of clicks, It's all up to you. You're the pilot of your own ship, right? Time flies, but you're the pilot. So, fly it good. Memorize intervals and how they sound on the guitar. All right, this is a good one. So this is just an exercise where you take a note like we were doing with A and say, all right, I'm going to play all the notes. So here's a major third or a A tritone, that's the sharp 4, the flat 5. That's a pretty dramatic sound. Sounds like ambulances in Europe. That's what I always think of. You hear them in like movies. So that's a big one. Or major, perfect 4th sounds cool. Perfect 5th because they have that nice bell type sound. Major 3rd, minor 3rd. So just try keeping one note the same, the lower note, and hear how that sounds. And then you can go the other way. Keep this note the same and go below. Here's your perfect 5th. There's your tritone. There's your 4th, major 3rd. So that way you're getting that intervals in both directions, right? Which is cool because you're going to use them in both directions. I know this is getting long, but if I'm going to talk about fretboard mastery, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to give you all the actionable advice and everything I could think of about fretboard mastery. So I apologize for the long episode, but hopefully it's helpful. Number 8, you can record yourself and analyze how you move across the fretboard. All right, this is such a benefit of cell phones. You can set yourself up in practice, and you can see how you're moving across the neck, like a football player or an athlete seeing how they're running, or if they miss a step, or they say, oh, you when you off the line, you do this. I don't know the terminology. You do an extra step or something. If you don't do that, you can save 2/10 of a second or whatever. It's the same for guitar. It's a physical activity, and you can see, oh, maybe that looks awkward when I'm playing that, right? Or, maybe I see people play with their thumb a lot. That's not something I can do, but that's something I want to learn how to do, So maybe I'd record myself doing it and be like, oh, it looks really cramped. Maybe if I move my elbow out, move it in or whatever, but without recording, I might not be able to see that or notice it, because of my vantage point being up here above the neck. So that's another idea to kind of combat that awkward transition thing. Number 9. So challenge yourself with exercises that mix scales, chords, and arpeggios, right? That's the same thing we're talking about before. Let's go back to A major, right? Maybe you play the chord, and then you play down the scale, and then play from that note, play the chord, Or maybe play from here or here. Play parts of the chord. I like to play pentatonics, right? So now I do a lot of those, sort of like Curtis Mayfield, Hendrixy. I like to grab just random notes from the A major pentatonic. Like, what does that make? Well, that has a major 7 on it. But, or grab, if I'm soloing, I can use groups of notes from the pentatonic. And then if I switch keys, you can hear it. Or chords. And then throw in some single note stuff. So when you're soloing, whether you're just sticking in one scale or switching per chord, try that. Think, all right, I'm going to play some dyads. I'm going to mix it with some single note stuff. I can do octave. Not only does that improve your understanding of the neck, but it also adds texture I think, and character to your solos. I think of it as texture, in a visual way. When I play, like they have different characteristics. Like chords would be a thicker, bumpier thing, and octaves, obviously, are these two like, I don't know. You think of it any way you like, and don't think I'm weird. I see you judging me. No, it's all right. I judge myself. So, well, actually, I don't judge myself, so I need other people to judge me, keep me in line. All right, number 10, final tip for understanding your fretboard, becoming a fretboard master, and just guitar in general is stay consistent, but keep sessions short and enjoyable. Small wins add up, so don't be stressing out like I got to practice like 10 hours. I got to play all the scales in all the places, and I have to be able to memorize the notes on the neck right away. I'm gonna sit here for 12 hours till I get it. It doesn't help as much as taking those 10 hours and break them up into 20 half-hour sessions, or 40, 15-minute sessions, where you just keep consistently kind of revisiting the same info, and that's going to help it stick better and better. It's like when you meet someone for the first time, maybe you don't remember their name unless you're really good at that, but you meet them again and again and again, and you keep asking them their name. Be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Can you remind me your name? And like after the 20th time, I get it. But that doesn't say anything about the person. It says more about me and my memory. But that's the idea, is you're revisiting this G note here, and then you revisit it again. You have to go, oh, what note is that? And you go, oh, all right, that's G. And then you revisit it again and again. And eventually it sinks in. But if you kept going, all right, that's G, and then you like, that's G for an hour, I'm not sure it's going to work as well. Scientifically, it's not proven that works as well as splitting things up into smaller little chunks. So cool. I'm going to recap. Fretboard mastery isn't about being perfect. It's about understanding, connecting, and playing freely across the guitar. Guitar playing is not perfect, and it shouldn't be. Otherwise, we'd be AI and robots, which are coming down the pike. And I think it's the human sort of inconsistencies and the ability to get out of weird corners on the neck that you painted yourself into in a creative way is what makes us unique and human, and what makes each guitar player and artist unique as well, because they each have their own set of tools to get out of these mistakes, right? So I think embrace the mistakes, don't be perfect, and just have fun. Pick one or two of these exercises and try them this week. Give them a shot. See if they help at all. One that rings true to you, that you're like, I might try that. I'd like to hear what it is in the comments if you have one that you're going to try to grab onto. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow the podcast so you never missed a tip to level up your guitar playing. I enjoy bringing these to you, so I love to hear from you. So please reach out. And until next time, this is Neil Santos with the Guitar Underground, and keep on picking, all right? Take care. Bye-bye.